comic fans out there. Troy to the Max Extreme here.
And Ghost Hunter Dave.
We're returning to our hashtag Doomsday Clock watch now that the impending countdown has finally hit midnight as of December 18th, 2019. The final issue of Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Doomsday Clock is in our hands. Right, Dave?
It's 2012. Doomsday Clock hasn't even been conceived yet, although the gears are already in motion. In my hands, I hold Before Watchmen, a collection of prequel stories centered around characters from the Watchmen universe. Despite the impressive creative team involved, fans are apprehensive about the prospect. Much of this is caused by original creator Alan Moore's adamant disdain for anything related to his sacred property.
Dave? Are you gonna join us here? Talk about Doomsday Clock? I mean, we've only been leading up to this moment for most of the year. Wasn't sure it was gonna make it, but we're here, so that's exciting.
It's 2016. DC relaunches its properties with the 80-page single issue entitled DC Rebirth. In it, readers are shocked by the first ever appearance of the iconic Watchmen button materializing in the Batcave. As the series concludes, we are given a glimpse at the larger picture, a construct set in place earlier that year at the conclusion of Justice League number 50. Metron and Owlman are seemingly disintegrated by a blue beam of light. By the conclusion of Rebirth number 1, readers are finally given an answer to who is controlling the DC universe. It is Dr. Manhattan. Nothing ever ends.
Dave!
Apologies. I was recollecting the initial seeds of Doomsday Clock, planted by Jeff Johns back in 2016.
Okay. Well?
It's 2017, and DC releases the highly anticipated Flash-Batman crossover, simply titled The Button. This 4-issue miniseries will act as a prequel to the highly anticipated, although at this point in time, yet to be revealed, Doomsday Clock, a 12-issue follow-up to the most highly acclaimed graphic novel of all time.
Dave, stop! We have to cover Doomsday Clock. We don't have time to look back at all this other shit. Look at the clock. It's 12 midnight.
You're right. It's too late. Always has been. Always will be. Too late.
Thank you. Now, can we...
There. I have reset the Doomsday Clock. It is now 10 minutes till midnight.
What? No, we don't have time!
Time is relative.
But we need to get the episode up.
Up is a relative concept. It has no intrinsic value.
God damn it, Dave! And I guess we're going to push Doomsday Clock back a bit so we can further explore some additional Watchmen shit. Great. So, maybe if we didn't spend so much time reading porno comics, we'd have got this review out on time.
There are a few universal certainties, Troy. One of which is that Doomsday Clock will always be prone to delays. It's a constant. Always has been. Always will be. Too late.
Too late. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. So we can just get to the show? Before Watchmen...
Not so fast. Heard you were talking about books.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
Before Watchmen?
Doesn't exist. corporate cash grab, raping the work of renowned artist, soiling masterpiece, befouling literature like a bowel movement on chest of cheap whore.
Oh my god, that's so graphic.
Big corporations running dry on ideas, crawling back to the well, hoping for one last suckle on tit of golden age notoriety. They will bleed out in the alleyways, begging readers to buy their garbage, but will look down and whisper, no.
Are you done?
I made this sign.
Dave, can you do something about this? What the fuck is even going on? Dave! 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 Dave!
What does he want? What? I was in the middle of...
Can we just talk about Before Watchmen and get this shit over with?
Okay.
Before Watchmen is a comic series published in 2012 by DC Comics. It's a prequel to the 1986 12-issued Watchmen. The project consists of 8 limited series and one shot, though 2 were planned.
Oh.
For a total of 37 issues, more than doubling to the 12-issue Watchmen series. I got everything right in one.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this was a big deal when it came out.
Yeah. It was, I think, more or less a hot topic than a big deal.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Then should we touch this?
People like to talk about it more than they like to read about it.
Yes, and I still think that's the case.
Yeah.
So this has a sequel to Watchmen has been in the works since Watchmen finished. We talked about on our previous Watchmen episode that they did approach Gibbons and Moore about doing that, like comedian war stories and a Rorschach
and
journal.
Night Owl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like team up thing.
And I think a Minutemen too. They were kind of considering.
And they kind of poo-pooed it because they didn't think there was that much material there to really go on with a sequel.
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to do it anyway because DC owned it in perpetuity as long as they keep reprinting those trades, right?
Yep.
So back in 2010, Moore told Wired that DC offered him the rights to Watchmen as recent as that week if he would agree to a prequel and or sequel projects.
Mm.
Of course, Alan Moore being Alan Moore, he's just
2010 Alan Moore is
Oh,
pretty much
that's
full
pretty-
curmudgeon
that's
at that point.
late in the game.
He's essentially the old man and up.
Yeah, so here's a quote from Moore. If they said that 10 years ago, which I even feel like is pretty
Yeah.
not far enough,
No.
when I asked them for that, then yeah, it could have worked. But these days, I don't want Watchmen back. Certainly, I don't want it back under those kinds of terms. And it would be like that they still own it, and they're just making money off Moore's back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
DC Comics publishers Dan DiDio and Jim Lee at the time, they had almost Before Watchmen, I would assume in the works by then.
Yeah.
And saying...
They thought he would love it. They have it all packaged, and they're like, ooh.
And then he just slinks off into the darkness. They said that they would never do anything with the Watchmen title unless they've got the best creators attached to this. Which sounds great.
Uh-huh.
It's a big promise. DC Comics would only revisit these iconic characters if the creative vision of any proposed new stories matched the quality set by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons nearly 25 years ago. And our first discussion on any of this would naturally be with the creators themselves.
Mm.
Bullshit.
When Plan A went to the wayside, they backed on their initial pitch that it would only match the quality of the original.
Yes.
They gathered a group.
Yes.
They got them printed, and they're like, we did it!
We
there we go!
did it!
We matched Watchmen. Not quite. But
No.
you know what? They gathered
They
a heck of a creative team.
They
on
really
these
did.
books.
It is an all-star team that they They scooped in there.
Yeah. I mean, they had to.
Yep.
They had to cover their asses if they're touching Watchmen.
Oh, for sure.
And I think they pulled in, like, the big guns. The people that, like, you can't get mad at for playing
Yes.
with Watchmen. Like, no one is gonna call out Darwin Cook.
No. No.
No one is gonna call out a Kubert. No one is gonna
Right.
call out Adam Hughes.
Right.
Like, they brought in Golden Boys.
Yes. I feel like everybody they picked for the art team in this is perfectly suited for every character that they chose.
Absolutely.
It's more or less the writers. I see why they picked the writers for the ones that they did.
Yeah, I do too.
But the execution of that, I feel, is maybe not as well done as the art.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to crack.
Yeah, it
because,
is.
like, Watchmen in itself is a complete story.
Yeah.
So anything you add is just, like, extra, you know?
Yes.
And that's what all of this feels like.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, it's good.
Right.
But, like, it's not the main course that we already had.
It's not going to hit this pinnacle
Yeah.
that Watchmen already set.
And how could it? And if it did, I would almost, like, hold it against it. Because it's like, how dare you? You know? We already
How
got
dare
Watchmen.
you write such a great story?
Yeah, it's like they already went through all this shit. They don't need to tackle this again.
Right.
It's how I felt at the end of Stranger Things, where I'm like, they have suffered enough. Leave Will and his family alone.
Oh,
They don't
that's
need more adventures. Keep them out of peril.
So I have a quote from Gibbons to follow you up right there. So Dave Gibbons said the original series...
Lay it on me. Dave to Dave.
Dave connection. The original series of Watchmen is the complete story that Alan Moore and I wanted to tell. However, I appreciate DC's reasons for this initiative, and that the wish of the artists and the writers involved pay tribute to our work. May these new additions have the success they deserve.
Desire.
Oh.
Desire. That's a little
That's
less.
a one word that means a lot more in
Yes.
certain connotations.
But I get it.
Yeah,
you know,
same.
He's playing ball because he's not Alan Moore.
Right.
You hear Dave Gibbons, you're like, who? You hear Alan Moore, you're like, oh!
Yeah, for sure.
So, I completely understand.
Right.
He has to work. He has to get paid.
Right.
Alan Moore is fine. He's well off. He's throwing Watchmen checks in the garbage.
Right.
He could be using them to, like, donate to charity, but he's throwing them to the garbage or whatever.
I don't 100% agree with that, but I do think Dave Gibbons has a lot more contributed to Watchmen than like a lot of people think. Like, he designed all of the characters.
Yeah.
Like, the initial cover of the button is his idea with the blood splatter and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, without that, there's no, like, iconic
image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he did a ton of work in this. Granted, Alan Moore's scripts are very descriptive.
Yes.
But Dave Gibbons did, I
It's a
think,
partnership.
just as equal footing.
Yep.
And so for him to be like, yeah, if Alan Moore's not going to take the helm on this, I probably should.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's in somebody else's hands completely.
I wonder, like, if they just offered him a boatload of money, or if he was just like, go ahead, guys.
I have
Whatever.
no idea.
He was fine with the show, too. He's fine with the movie. Like, he just seems like, whatever. I get it. I get how the world works.
Yeah.
So what did Moore say about Before Watchmen?
Well, you could probably assume what he said, but I'll tell you what he said. Moore criticized the project, calling it completely shameless, and stated he was not interested in monetary compensation, which...
Classic.
Classic.
Moore, right out of his playbook.
Yeah, he'd just rather live in his hovel. But rather, what I want is for this not to happen. So,
Well, Alan.
sorry to say, you didn't get what you wanted.
No.
He goes on to say, what the comics industry has effectively said is, yes, this is the only book that made us briefly special, and that was because it wasn't like all the other books. Watchmen was something that stood on its own and had the integrity of a literary work. What they've decided now is, so let's change it to a regular comic that can run indefinitely and have spin-offs, and let's make it as unexceptional as possible. Like I say, they're doing this because they haven't got any other choices left, evidently.
Oof.
Uh,
Hard truth.
it
Uncle Alan
When they-
getting it home.
And that's pretty much what everybody's argument was, too, when they've gone back and to do these Before Watchmen books, is like, DC has run out of creative ideas.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the actual case. They've got a multitude of other characters to play with, but when they do need that little pick-me-up, you know, they can always say Watchmen and people will come flooding, yay or nay.
Absolutely. And it's also, it's the unattainable, the coveted thing that, like,
Yeah.
oh, don't touch.
Right.
You can't fucking touch Watchmen. So it's like, in the back of everyone's mind, they're like, but if we did, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? You know, it's like, so where'd it go from there after they got Alan's blessing?
Well, they assembled their team, right?
Uh-huh.
Initially, Darwin Cook was scheduled to pen all of these titles.
Wow. Going all in on Cook.
Yeah, which is
A
a great choice.
yeah.
I feel like if he went in on all of them, I would love to see that. Unfortunately, we never will.
No.
But I probably felt that pressure of like, well, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
So he talked DC down to 3 titles,
Uh-huh.
which then he talked him down to 2 titles, which then he talked him down to 1, and then co-writing another with Amanda Connor.
Yeah.
His Silk Spectre one.
Yep. And the one that he picked, it suits him perfectly.
For sure.
So once Cook dropped down to just 1.5 titles, essentially,
Yeah.
they brought in some other heavy hitters.
Yep.
J. Michael Straczynski.
Yep.
They booked for 2.
Yep.
And I thought his talents were well placed on the books that they chose him for.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly if they turned out how they should have,
Yeah.
but I get why they chose him for it.
Yeah.
Same with Brian Azzarello.
Yep.
And then they brought back Len Wein,
Yeah.
which I thought was a nice gesture there.
Yeah.
And I actually really appreciated his contribution to this overall.
Yeah. So Len Wein was originally an editor for Watchmen, but left the project due to creative differences. And when he was brought back in this, he wrote the Ozymandias title.
Yeah.
His
Shined a spotlight on those creative differences.
his main, I don't know if it was his main argument, but he felt like the ending to Watchmen was way too similar to an Outer Limits episode. So much so that when they brought him in for this, he points that out in the Ozymandias title.
Calls it out immediately as the inspiration for Ozymandias' plan.
Oh my! So I thought that was a fun little jab.
Yes, yeah, I did too.
And then he also wrote the like the smaller material, right? Like the
Yeah, he
Crimson
did.
Corsair.
So let's do it, Troy.
Sure thing.
Let's kick it off where it all began. After Watchmen, with Before Watchmen, Minutemen.
That's right.
6 issues by Darwin Cook, handling everything.
Everything. Yep.
Art and writing duties.
That's right. If you're collecting the trades or the hardcovers, it's fun that they collect them by writer.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, I do too. And also with that one is the Silk Spectre one when he teamed with Amanda Connor.
Yeah, who does a bang-up job on the art. in
Oh,
this, too.
for sure.
But yeah, so this one follows Hollis Mason, the original Night Owl, as he recounts the exploits with the Minutemen during the 1940s. While in the midst of his retirement, he faces opposition to the publication of his tell-all autobiography, Under the Hood.
Yeah.
We all know that one.
Yeah.
Good read. Although it heavily retcons certain characters' backstories by suggesting that a large part of Under the Hood was dirty lies and cover-ups, it debuted to mostly positive reviews.
Yeah. The first read-through of all of these books, Minutemen was my favorite one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I was always somehow kind of underwhelmed by this. Even though I love Darwin Cook, something about this just, like, kind of irked me when I read Under the Hood, or Minutemen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going through all of these again, knowing kind of already the story that's going to take place, I wasn't underwhelmed with Minutemen, but I guess I softened on it a little.
Yeah.
It's not... I think all of these are just kind of fine now. You know what I mean?
I feel about the same way.
So, but I still think that one is my favorite. And maybe it's just the charm of Darwin Cook. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I thought, like, despite Cook's talent as a storyteller, which he's heads and tails above so many other people in the industry at that time. It looks amazing, but I feel like the characterization of Hollis Mason is a little off. How he just, like, shamelessly drags his fellow heroes for the sake of his book.
Yeah.
That kind of poked me a little. And I also thought it kind of went a little over the top in relation to some of their previous exploits, where, like, the Minutemen literally saved the world at times, where in the original Watchmen, I just felt like they were just a bunch of normal people that put on dumb costumes.
Yeah, street-level dudes.
Yeah, and stopped a couple robberies.
Yeah.
I felt like it gave them way too much credit.
Yeah, okay, I can see that, for sure. Because you would have to look at that in everybody through Watchmen, right? Like, granted, they have their super villains, but really, what is Moloch doing?
Exactly. I guess, like, I always imagine, like, the early Minutemen, they did essentially nothing, you know?
Yeah. They would meet just like a Lions Club meeting.
Yeah.
And go out and punch a dude on the street when they needed to.
Exactly. I did like the angle that he threw on Silhouette, though. He gave her a lot more screen time than she ever got in the original, and kind of fleshed out her backstory as, like, this adamant protector of children.
Yeah.
Based on her own upbringing in... I think Germany? It was like Nazi era.
Nazi era, yeah.
The Nazi times,
yeah.
I believe.
I like that they cast a light on her too, just because you don't really get a lot of her at all in Watchmen. Yeah. And, you know, she kind of just dies kind of tragically.
Yeah, he does a really good job of fleshing out all of the original Minutemen, especially Mothman, too.
Oh,
Mothman! Who has, like, a complete mental breakdown and becomes an alcoholic and everything, but I liked his story. And it felt like Jeff Johns pulled a lot from this to follow up in Doomsday Clock.
Oh, sure, on that one issue?
Yeah,
like the
with
third
Mothman.
issue or something? Yeah.
Yep. I think maybe my biggest complaint with this was the inconsistency around Hooded Justice at the end, where it just left me really puzzled, where I wasn't quite sure, like, so what happened here? Like, was he a murderer or a kidnapper of children? Was he framed by the comedian? It left a lot of unanswered questions that didn't give, like, even a hint of an answer, where I'm like, I don't know where this leaves anything.
Right. Around the time that I was rereading these, the Watchmen show and the Hooded Justice episode came out, so that kind of, like, blew whatever I didn't really like of that out of the water, because I'm like, oh, they did it here.
Yeah.
Great.
I was going to say, it's hard to recount this after just reading Doomsday Clock, Before Watchmen, and watching HBO Watchmen, which are simultaneously telling the same story through different creators.
Yeah.
But overall, I would give this one like a 3.5 out of 5, maybe. 3.5 smileys.
3 smileys out of...
3.5 sexy sexes.
I don't know,
Nah, we don't have to rate them all. Like,
okay, that's good.
We'll just say at the end, like, what's your favorite one.
Let's jump into Silk Spectre, co-written by Amanda Conner and drawn by Amanda Conner.
Yeah. This might be one of the more forgettable ones, but I feel like there was a lot of good stuff there.
So, Silk Spectre has, like, no background in Watchmen. Like, the Silk Spectre 2.
Lori. Yeah.
You don't really get to know what her child... Or like...
You got a broad stroke that she had an overbearing mother.
Yeah.
That forced her into the crime-fighting circuit.
So, I like that Darwin Cook went to a period of her life where you could really do anything.
And he picked a fun period to do it in,
Yes,
too.
he did. And so, that's one of the reasons why this hardcover probably is one that I wouldn't feign to go back to, you know?
Yeah.
I really like both stories in this. The Silk Spectre one I enjoyed more than I thought I ever would.
Yeah.
Like, it's still just kind of like, yeah, it's good.
Uh-huh.
But, like, compared, I guess, to the rest of them, I think this is a strong hardcover right here.
I'd agree with that. It's got, like, this kind of weird 70s, like, Easy Rider motif, where she just, like, goes out on the road with, like, she shacks up with a bunch of hippie people in the 70s.
Yep, and is, like, on some commune.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. She fights a mobster that looks very much like Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, yes.
who's funding a drug lord named Dr. Guru Stein.
Yeah.
And then it features a great, like, super trippy
Yes.
drug binge that
Yep.
she gets subjected to.
Yep.
And it also gives the backstory to how the comedian got his smiley face button.
Right.
Which I thought was like, huh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, sure.
He picks it up from his daughter's room when he watches over her sleeping. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
So was I.
The artwork in this is phenomenal.
Yep.
Amanda Conner just knocks it out of the park on this.
Right.
And she's a name that, like, I see attached to all these properties, and I'm not always huge on the characters she's usually associated with, like Harley Quinn and a lot of those.
she's doing a lot of Harley Quinn stuff.
But every time I see it, I'm like, man, I really like that. It's so consistent.
Right.
Everything looks great.
Yep.
And she's a great addition to, like, the Watchmen repertoire
of
of artists.
Yeah. I hate that sometimes I sleep on Amanda Conner work.
Yeah.
Because anytime I open up a work of hers, I'm like, man, this is so tight. And hers is a style that I most represent with, because it's kind of like my drawing style.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's kind of like rounded, cartoony, but still lifelike and bouncy. Yeah. So,
I would say it's very much like a Ryan Otley, but rounder. Softer.
Yes.
Like, it's very bouncy and lively and fun, but, like, so consistent throughout the whole thing.
She's a great artist.
Yeah. My only complaint with this is the portrayal of Sally Jupiter, where she is just, like, such an overbearing nag.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh my god! Like,
Yeah.
I enjoyed Sally Jupiter in the original Watchmen because she was, like, this free-spirited type of character.
Yeah.
And I get that she grows up and she kind of forces it on her daughter, but I never imagined, like, to this extent where it's like, good lord,
Well,
like, back off, lady.
If you had to compare to anything in, like, real life, it'd be like a pageant mom.
Mm-hmm.
Because she, like, makes her daughter kind of follow in her footsteps of, like, a southern pageant mom or whatever.
So let's jump into the next writer. Brian Azzarello tackles Rorschach and the Comedian.
Yeah. If you're familiar with Azzarello's work in general, he's a bit mean-spirited.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and others, but, like, I feel like his sensibilities lend itself to these characters quite a bit.
On paper, perfect.
Yes.
Perfect pairing.
Yeah.
The backup was probably Mark Millar.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Comedian tells the story of Comedian's history with the Kennedy family during his exploits in the violent Vietnam era, and unfortunately this one debuted to mostly negative reviews.
Yeah. So this one kind of confused me. There's like a one-off line in Watchmen about assassinating a president.
This one is the one that is most inconsistent with Watchmen as a whole, I feel like.
Because everyone's taken that line differently. Like, if you watch the Zack Snyder movie, he makes it so the comedian did assassinate JFK. And
they flat out show it, yeah.
But in this, they take it as, like, he was good chums with the Kennedys, and he finds out when he's not even in America.
Yeah, he's overseas in Vietnam. Yeah. It seems like a weird miss for editorial.
Yeah, but then again, like, I guess the line could be interpreted, because it is pretty vague in the book. And it's like it's like in one word bubble. That's all it is.
And it could totally be one of those situations where they, like, in the book, it sets it up like he killed Kennedy. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
In the original Watchmen. And in the way that Azzarello paints it, he's a friend of Kennedy, and he has to kind of laugh that comment off. Like, oh, yeah, that would be something I do.
Right.
Fuck you. You know? Because, like, he does like this guy, and he would not want to be associated with killing him.
Right.
So I guess you could kind of make an argument. Maybe that's what he was going for with this.
Maybe.
But J.G. Jones did the artwork for this one. On the reread of this, I really enjoyed this for some reason. And I didn't care for it a whole lot in the first read.
This one was one that I didn't care for in the first read either, and I don't know, it kind of felt, this one I really just kind of breezed through.
Yeah.
Didn't read it super close. But, like, I felt like, so there's, like, this is a 6-issue one.
Yeah, it might be a little longer than it needs to be.
And there's 4 issues where he's back in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that really didn't lend itself to a lot of the narrative very much. And it was more or less... it should have dealt more with, like, him and the Kennedys. And I felt like when he was in Vietnam, it didn't really do anything else. It was just there.
I don't know. I might play devil's advocate there, where I thought it balanced it pretty well. I got a good dose of his friendship with the Kennedys. Like, they were essentially his only, like, real friends.
Yeah.
The Kennedy family.
Yeah.
And he would do anything for them. So much so that Jackie Kennedy hires him to kill Marilyn Monroe, which he does in the beginning. And then he's drafted overseas as almost like a Captain America emblem to jumpstart the patriotism of Vietnam. And once he gets swept up in how crazy it is over there, he just, like, goes with the flow and just, like...
just goes insane.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And he's responsible for this, like, horrific massacre of, like, a civilian village in Vietnam. Yeah. Which I'm not sure if this particular instance is a very a specific thing in history that happened, or if it's just supposed to be, like, a metaphor for a lot of those types of occurrences. But I know shit like that happened. And, they paint the comedian as the instigator of this. Yeah. Just warped by the world, basically. Like, he's just at the point where it's like, fuck it. Yeah. You know, it's all crazy. You can't make sense out of this. Yeah. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. Yeah. And that takes him, from that point on, that is, like, kind of what really gives him a sharp turn to a bad guy. Because the book ends with him killing Bobby Kennedy. Yeah. Hired to assassinate Bobby Kennedy, who is his good friend. And at that point, he's just like, I guess this is what I am now. I'm just a killer. Yeah. Well, when you say it, it sounds like a little better. Maybe I'll revisit this one again. Because this one I am the most divisive about. Great, because, I feel like maybe that's a lot of Azzarello's stuff.
And not even Azzarello's stuff, like him specifically, but just like his take on the comedian compared to Watchmen's take on it, compared to, like, Snyder's take on it, compared to... Yeah. He's even brought up in other Before Watchmen stuff, too.
I don't know. He's a character that... He's a bit like the Joker. He's kind of open for interpretation on what you want to do with him. Sure. And I felt like this iteration of him was fairly in line with what Moore gave us. Okay. Where he's a darker, damaged character. Yeah. From what, like, the war showed him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You want to pause it there?
Sure.
All right.
So what do you think when people come up to you on the street and they say, like, I identify with Rorschach. Rorschach's my favorite superhero.
I wanted to kind of make, like, yeah, this is what Batman would be in the real world. I had forgotten that actually, to a lot of comic fans, that smelling, not having a girlfriend, these are actually kind of heroic. So actually, sort of, Rorschach became the most popular character in Watchmen. I meant him to be this bad example, but I have people come up to me in the street saying, I am Rorschach, that is my story. And I'll be thinking, yeah, great, can you just keep away from me, never come anywhere near me again as long as I live?
He's just angry about big corporations stealing his characters. He didn't mean what he said.
Moore has long since abandoned his creation, yet it continues to operate without his guidance. A clock without a craftsman.
Get woke. Go broke.
Loose lips sink ships.
A penny saved is a penny earned.